Hello, everybody. Today we're getting straight down to business. We are going to be flipping through Oak Meadow Grade 5 Science. I have the teacher's manual and I have the course book. I just want to let everybody know, I have never in my almost 8 years of homeschooling ever used Oak Meadow in any shape, form, or fashion. So I am not going to be the person to ask specific questions about this curriculum of, because I don't feel qualified to talk about it yet, I'm just going to do like a flip through. I'm going to give my general thoughts, and because I can't help myself. But just keep that in mind, okay? Is that I am not the person for all that stuff. Take whatever I say with a grain of salt. If you've been following my journey on trying to select a science curriculum for my incoming fifth grader, you know how hard this process has been for me. It has been really hard because my youngest is completely different from my oldest child. And that has taken me a while to figure out like what that is. And I think Oak Meadow is going to be perfect. The reason I went with Oak Meadow, because I'm just going to get it out of the way right now. The reason I went with Oak Meadow is because I feel like it's a curriculum that gives you flexibility in how you approach it and how you complete the end product. And that's basically the bottom line. I personally think if you're looking for an explicit science curriculum that's going to take you by your hand and take you step by step through what you're supposed to be doing on what day, this is probably not going to be a curriculum that is going to be good for you. Because from my initial intake and from everything that I've seen so far, I don't think it's going to be that way. Personally, that's the way I work. That's the way my brain works. I need everything laid out. I need everything scaffolded. I need to be led step by step. I want all the things, the graphic organizers, the templates, like that's the way my brain works. But that is not the way my fifth grader's brain works at all. So this is going to pair in beautifully and it's going to tap into his method of learning, but it allows room for growth. Like there is room for you to still tweak it and make it your own. And that is why I went with it. So in a separate video, I'm going to show you how I'm approaching the very first lesson, the books that I'm using and things that I'm incorporating with it. Okay. So that's going to be in a separate video. For this one, I just want to keep it as like, this is a flip through of it. So I'm going to put aside the teacher's manual for right now because I think everything, the meat and the potatoes, is really found in the science course book, not necessarily the teacher's manual. Okay, so let's go through the table of contents, and I think that you're going to see that the first 4 lessons are kind of like your general scientific overview. What is science? What is a scientific method? The different units of measurement, like things like that. And then after we get beyond these 4 lessons, then you're going to see more of the meat and the potatoes of the curriculum. So scientific inquiry, and we're using bird beaks to kind of accomplish that overall task. Scientific ways of knowing, frogs, indicator species, methods of measurement, the metric system, measurement conversion, that sort of stuff. Magnification as a scientific tool, microscopic observations comparing plant and animal cells, that kind of stuff. Now, this is where you're going to get into like the meat and the potatoes. Now you're going into the environment, living and non-living things, and a decomp experiment, the web of life like food chains and food webs, balance of nature, animal habitats, local and endangered species, animal behavior, ants behavior experiment. That's going to be interesting. I actually may need to look ahead. I may need something for that one. And then protected habitats, predator and prey, the ripple effect, forest and desert biomes, and then some other biomes down here, the tundra, grassland, and ocean biomes, bodies of water like the water cycle, evaporation, astronomy, the solar system and beyond. You're going to be making a solar system model. Pollution and Earth's resources. Ooh, and Earth-friendly alternatives. See that? I like that. And then energy alternatives, energy conservation, renewable energy, conserving Earth's resources, Earth stewardship. Love that. And then a first semester overview, weather patterns, jet stream, making a wind vane, clouds and storms. You're going to do a cloud in a bottle, plant and animal cells, classification, domains and kingdoms, tissues, body systems, structures, form and function, an animal research report, an oral presentation for week 26. There's 36 weeks total, I believe. Physics, early theories, properties of gravity, energy, expansion, contraction, properties of water, light energy, sound waves, electricity and magnetism, air pressure. We just covered. This is so cool. I just did a deep dive into physics and like that is so cool because we're going to review it anyway. That was neither here nor there, right? Okay. Technology and design, diving deeper into physics, and then a science review and exam. Okay, so how this is gonna go is I'm gonna pretty much go through the very first lesson with you. And then I'm gonna pick another lesson randomly from like towards the middle, like this one, for instance. And then I will pick another one towards the end. That way you get to see one from the beginning, one from the middle, one from the end. If you're not aware, Oak Meadow has a very generous sample online. It's like 2 or 3, possibly 4 weeks worth of lessons online. So I definitely recommend taking a look at that. That way you can take your time, read through all the things and see if it's a good fit, you know? Okay, so lesson 1 I'm very familiar with because I just finished prepping for it. And this is the flow. You have your things that you have to accomplish by the end of the week. It's not going to tell you Monday do this, Tuesday do this, Wednesday do this, Thursday and Friday do this. It's not going to do that. It just gives you these have to be done by the end of the week. And whatever shape or form or fashion that you decide to do this in, if you decide to do this all on Monday and Tuesday, that's up to you guys, but it's not going to hold your hand and say Monday do this, Tuesday do this, and so on. Okay? So it starts off by just welcoming the child to science. What is science? Like, that kind of thing. And then it goes into reading and it tells you read the scientific method and bird beaks as tools. So one thing I don't think I mentioned is that you don't need any outside books for Oak Meadow to specifically like cover the things that they're asking you for. But you can definitely supplement with other materials. Like you can definitely supplement, which is what I did. You don't need like a DK Smithsonian, like any of those type of reference books to do this. It's all integrated in here. So they're telling you to read this and it's going to be in here. When we flip through it, you're going to see. So here are the assignments. So after reading about bird beaks, collect as many pictures of birds as you can and arrange the pictures according to beak type. So we're going to group all the conical shaped beaks in one area, all the long pointy ones, all like that kind of stuff. The hooked beaks, we're going to put them in separate categories and stuff. And we're going to paste the pictures on a piece of paper according to its beak type. Okay, and again up here, I should have actually led with this. I don't actually remember. Did I go through this with you guys? I don't even know. Read the scientific method and bird beaks as tools. Well, it's already telling us that that's what we're going to have to do anyway, right? Collect pictures of birds and group them into beak type. We know that because it just told us to do that in here, right? Make a guess about the bird's diet based on its beak. It's going to tell us that in the next page. And observe birds and make predictions about their diets. And this is part of the experiment. This observe and this experiment, it's part of like every week. Every week you're going to have something to do. And this is what you're going to have to do this week. And so it's going to tell you you're going to need bird seed, at least 2 different kinds of bird seed. Okay, so then the next page. And by the way, just to show you how long it is. So that was the first page, second page, third page, the 4th page, and then here's your assessment. And at least for the very first lesson, that's the length. But we'll see 2 other lessons worth, so that way you can get a good idea on the length of the lessons. So number 2, you're going to observe birds in your own backyard or a local park. And ask yourself what type of bird each food might eat based on the shape of its beak. And make a list of at least 3 different types of birds you observe. If you don't know the type of bird, just describe it as well as you can, particularly its beak shape. And there you go. You're going to create a hypothesis for each that predicts what type of food each bird will prefer. So you're making a hypothesis, you're observing, and you're taking a guess, right? The experiment now, you are going to get your different types of bird seed that it told you to get. And you're going to create different feeding stations, and you are going to observe which birds with what type of beak are eating which type of foods. But then you're going to switch that up later on, and you're going to change the locations of it, and see if that has any effect on which birds like to eat what types of foods, Okay, so that's basically what the experiment is. And then you're going to it discusses the scientific method, what it is, how it's helpful, how do you use it, and a breakdown of the scientific method. Okay, so remember it told us to read 2 things. Bird beaks as tools was one of them. So here you go. So it's kind of giving us 3 general examples. So you have the like the duckbills and how they use that beak, like the pelican's beak. Then you have the cardinal's beak, and then it gives you another example. And to be honest, between the 3 examples that they give you, it kind of covers a majority of beak shapes. So this is like the hooked beak for predators, and it kind of goes into all that. And then this is for enrolled students, which we don't have to pay attention to. And then at the end of every single lesson, you have a learning assessment. So it will tell you exactly how to use it and stuff. So if you want to use it, it's there. It's at the end of every single lesson. Okay, now let's kind of go into, let's go into another random, should we do weather patterns? Let's do this one. Let's do clouds and storms. All right, the same flow. You're going to see your assignment summary, read clouds and storms, continue to record weather data and make predictions. I'm assuming this was probably in the previous lesson that it told you to start keeping track. Compare weather predictions to actual weather, illustrate the rain shadow effect, make a list of what to do in case of a tornado, research blizzards in the last 100 years, complete a science test, an activity is dew point, an experiment is cloud in a bottle. So definitely picked up a little bit for that one. Let me just... like look at this one for physics. Read physical science, find examples of physics in earlier lessons, find examples of physics in daily life, calculate your weight on other planets. That's cool. I just did that over the summer with my kids. Order the planets according to mass, demonstrate what would happen to the moon without gravity. That is cool because you're going to do a demonstration on that. And experiment properties of gravity. Okay. So this one just seems a little beefier than the other ones, probably because it's a little bit of carryover from the previous lesson. All right, so let's look at this one. This one says, continue to take weather readings at the same time each day and record them in your weather journal or chart. Do you notice any weather patterns or trends? Are you beginning to be able to predict the weather based on your observations? Use the 2 extra columns on your chart to record what types of clouds there are in the sky and to make a prediction about the next day's weather. At the end of this week, your study of meteorology will end. Okay, so for the past couple of lessons, you've probably already have been doing this, you know? This is the final week of that. But you're encouraged to continue monitoring the weather and using your knowledge to make weather forecasts. You will continue to keep your sky journal throughout the year. Continue to write down. So continue to write down, which infers that we have been doing it for the previous lessons. And that's probably why this looks a little bulkier than usual, is because it's a carryover from prior lessons. Continue to write down the predicted weather from the newspaper or the internet this week, comparing it to the weather you observe and track it on your weather chart. Write a paragraph of your findings explaining what factors could make the actual weather different from the predicted weather. Just draw a picture of the rain shadow effect. Use arrows to indicate what happens as rain clouds move up and over a mountain range. Label your drawings to help explain this phenomenon. By the way, the materials to do the dew point one, you're going to need glass, ice, water, and a thermometer. And then you can see the experiment cloud in a bottle. Use a plastic bottle with a cap match. Oh, with a cap match. You're going to need a match. Oh my goodness. It's a total Sunday. I am still in weekend mode. Okay. And then you're going to learn more about tornadoes and make up a list of what to do in case of a tornado. Your list should include what to do if you're indoors in various types of buildings, outdoors, and in a vehicle. Look up blizzards that have happened in the last 100 years. Interview your parents or grandparents to find out if they remember any of these storms. Do you remember any recent blizzards? Write a paragraph about what happened in one of these blizzards, and if possible, include memories of your own or others who have experienced it. All right, so those are what we're supposed to accomplish, okay? This is all the things we're going to accomplish this week. Your activity, you're going to, is on dew point. So you're going to have all this. It's going to tell you how to do that. And then you're going to do this experiment, cloud in a bottle. You're going to create a cloud. I think we've all seen this. That's always a fun one. And then the instructions continue over here on how to do it. But then what's really cool is you're changing one of the variables in the experiment. This is now the second time that I've seen that. They did that with the bird seed, and they're doing it with this. So I'm pretty sure this is probably a consistent thing throughout all their science, which I think is cool. So here's your science test. That's what I was like confused. I said, do the science test. Hold on a second. I want to go back to that page. Complete a science test. I was like, what do you mean complete a science test? Well, it's right here. So you have a science test, like a science test. In which layer of the atmosphere does weather form? Define air mass. What is an air mass called if it forms over land, water, the equator, northern areas? Describe what happens when air masses collide. What is the jet stream? And explain how it influences weather patterns. List some of the tools that meteorologists use to forecast the weather and describe their purposes. Explain how clouds form. Explain how a low pressure system and a high pressure system are formed. Describe what kinds of weather is associated with each one. Does wind chill make it colder outside? What is a rain shadow? List the cloud types and what weather they signify. Why do we see lightning first and hear the thunder later if they happen at the same time? How fast does the wind have to be blowing to be called a hurricane? These are all really cool things. What is the difference between a hurricane, a typhoon, and a cyclone? What defines a blizzard? That's really cool. If that's the stuff that they've been learning about for the past like several lessons, like on this weather thing, I think that's really cool. So here are the reading selections, because again, everything is self-contained. You shouldn't, unless they tell you to go and like research outside, you shouldn't really have to. Would you want to on your own want to supplement the reading if you have books and you want to get, I'm going to get the Gail Gibbons book on tornadoes or the Gail Gibbons book on blizzards or whatever. And I think that would be like a cool add-on to include. Sure. And that's probably what we're all going to be doing anyway. But really the information is locked in here, right? So you have this one on clouds and storms, and it's giving you information in here. Cloud formations. Thunder and lightning. And by the way, I think it's really cool that they include real photography, not illustrations, and it's in color. I think that's cool. So you have that, and you're still reading, and you have extreme weather. And it continues on to over here and over here. And then that is it. And then, of course, your learning assessment in here at the end of everything. Okay, so let's just take one more lesson towards the end. There's 36 weeks. So let's take this one. This is towards the end, week 31. So this is sound waves. So this is what you're going to do. Read sound waves. Demonstrate compression waves with a slinky. Oh, that's fun. Explain concerns about using low frequency sound waves in the ocean. Compare how sound travels through different mediums. That's going to be fun. And playing with sound. And so what materials are you going to need? Playing with sound, you're going to need to do this activity in here. You're going to need this material in here. And by the way, they have a master list at the back, and I have it marked in here. They have a master list over here. Materials that you need by lesson. And so I'll tell you lesson 1, this is what you're going to need. Lesson 2, they have it all in here. And see, like I marked it here so I can just look lesson by lesson. But if you wanted an alphabetical order, they also have it listed what materials you're going to need according in an alphabetical order and stuff, you know? All right, so going back to this today. Take a slinky and stretch it loosely across the surface of a table with a friend holding the other end. Now, quickly jerk your end straight toward your friend and back again. You should see a compression wave travel through the length of the coil. This is what sound waves would look like if you can see them. That is cool. That is cool. And it says if you don't have a slinky, you can find a demonstration of that online. There has been concern about the military use of low-frequency sound waves in the ocean to detect enemy submarines. Going by what you've learned about whales. So cool, at some point prior to this curriculum, we actually learned about whales and probably how they use like their sonar and echolocation and all that kind of stuff, right? The sounds they make and their sensitive hearing. Why are people worried? Sit at an empty table, reach out your arm and tap the table lightly. What does it sound like? Now lay your ear on the table and do the same thing. Which is louder? Can you explain why? That is cool. Okay. Hold on a second. I think that's it. Is there a reading? Oh, there is reading. Okay. I got concerned there for a second. All right, here's your activity, playing with sand. So visible sound waves, vibrations and pitch, musical drinking glasses. Now you're going to play with pitch. Pretend pipe organ. These are really cool. He's going to get a kick out of it. Sound reflection and absorption. Hearing and pinpointing sound. So several different activities that you're going to be doing in there. Now here's the reading selection, because you're like, well, how are we going to learn all that stuff? Because the reading is in here. But of course, remember, you can always supplement it. So sound waves. Loudness, pitch, traveling sound. The speed of sound. Hearing. Oh, that's cool. And that's it. This is for enrolled students. And then your learning assessment. All right, guys, so that is a flip through of that. And I'm going to show you what the teacher's guide looks like. So that is that. The teacher's guide is over here. You'll notice it is a lot thinner than the student book. This is where everything is at, is in the student book. All right, the teacher's manual has a table of contents, an introduction. Let's talk in here about plagiarism, and that all the answers are going to be shown in orange. So here are the assignments. If you remember from the bird beak one, same stuff over here on the side, and it's telling us what to do. And this is just additional information for the teacher. You may want to incorporate games like playing cards or something like that, like a bird game thing that specifically talks about what food that animal would be eating, you know? Observe birds in your backyard, and it tells you just make sure they're making a list of birds and a sketch of birds' beaks, and then form a hypothesis on what type of food they would prefer. And then here's your experiment, and then a little bit more guidance on the scientific method for observation. Students write a question that the experiment will try to answer, and so on, you know? And that's pretty much it. What I'm going to try to do is I'm going to try to find the ones that we just went over, so that way you can see what those look like. Okay, do you remember this one? We did clouds and storms. So again, it's just kind of taking you from the point of the assignment area and giving you the answers. So students should notice that cloud types themselves can tell a lot about the weather. However, they may also notice that there are other factors that play a role in predicting the weather. When comparing predicted and actual weather, students should apply their scientific knowledge to forming a conjecture regarding the differences. All right. So over here, draw a picture of the rain shadow effect and use arrows to indicate what happens. Remember that question? The drawing should very clearly show how moisture drops out of the clouds as they rise and cool. As the air travels up over the mountain, the air cools and condenses. So it just gives you more information, and this is what should be included in the drawings. And then remember what I said, learn more about tornadoes and make up a list of what to do in case of a tornado. So more guidance in here that tornadoes can occur with very little warning. Have a family disaster plan in place and stay away from windows and that kind of stuff. And then look up blizzards that have happened in the last 100 years. Interview your parents, yada, yada, yada. Remember that question? Students may notice that storms hit with less warning in years past and did it with more damage, and so did more damage. There may also be a big difference in how long it takes to clean up after the storms of long ago. And then the activity, the dew point, when students notice condensation forming on the can, you might remind them that this water is not coming from the can, but from the air in the room. So just more tidbits. Now, the science test. Remember that science test? The areas are all in here. I mean, the answers. The answers are all in there. And that's what that looks like. So the answers filled in. And that's the teacher's guide. Now, I'm going to go and I'm going to find the other one. Okay, here was the sound waves one with the slinky. Remember that one? I'm really excited. I'm ridiculously excited about the slinky one. So remember, you had all the assignments. The use of the military of the low frequency sound waves. It has that info in here. Whales make very low frequency sounds that travel hundreds of miles. So it's giving you the answers in here. When you're sitting at an empty table and you have to tap it and all that kind of stuff, gives you more information in here on what you're supposed to be, what was the answer for those, you know? Your activities, remember this was the one that had like 5 different types of like activities that you're going to be doing in here. Like why the materials are acting the way that they're acting. Why is the rice grains jumping, you know? And if they're not jumping, what you should do to maybe try to help it to jump, you know? And there you go. And so that is a teacher's guide. So I hope that that's been helpful because it is quite a gamble to take on Oak Meadow when you don't really see that much like talked. Like, you see people using it, but you don't really see anybody flipping through it. You know what I mean? There's like a handful of accounts and stuff. So anyway, hopefully that has been helpful. I personally am really excited for this. I did not make this decision lightly. It was a long one. Other ones that I had considered were like Bookshark, and then ultimately I just ended up going with this one because I think that this is providing a creative way about learning about things other than the traditional worksheet approach, which is great. My older son is a very worksheet type of kid. Like, he doesn't mind it, and he at times prefers it, you know. But my youngest one is not like that. And I think him having more input on how he accomplishes a task, and I hope that you saw that as I was flipping through it, there's a little bit more leniency on how you do it. It's not going to take you like by the hand and say, this is like, you're going to have to do it this way, this way, this way, and this way. It is just kind of telling you what the end goal is. Like, this is what you need to do. And there's a little bit more leniency in terms of like the creative input on how to get there, you know? And that's what I'm excited for, guys. So stay tuned for the next video. I'll show you, and I'll take you by the very first lesson and show you how I'm approaching it and what I'm going to do with it, you know? So I hope you guys enjoyed. Hopefully it's useful to somebody. Okay, bye guys.